I had been counting down the days for months. Finally, my much-anticipated vacation had arrived, and I could almost taste the freedom of a week away from the relentless demands of daily life. But as I zipped up my suitcase, a small part of me lingered on my dream project, the one I had poured every ounce of energy, creativity, and hope into for years. It wasn't just a project. It was the embodiment of my passion, my vision for future, and the culmination of countless sleepless nights. Every sketch, every plan, every painstaking detail was a reflection of who I was, and the dreams I refused to compromise on. As I stood in my room, surrounded by stacks of papers and devices that carried months of work, I felt a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. Excitement for the vacation that awaited me, yes, but anxiety too. What if something went wrong while I was away? What if the project was left unattended, vulnerable to circumstances beyond my control? I tried to push those thoughts aside with a deep breath and a reassuring smile. I trusted my family, especially my father. He had always been a practical one, the steady hand guiding our family through turbulent waters. If anyone could keep an eye on things, I believed it would be him. Yet, beneath that trust was a small, nagging worry. My sister, bright and lively, had always struggled with money. Her debts had grown over the years, and I knew that Dad had been quietly managing her financial troubles. Still, I convinced myself that my father would never compromise something as important as my dream project for anything else. After all, he had seen how hard I worked, how much this project meant to me, right? With one last glance at my workspace, I grabbed my suitcase and locked the door behind me. The sun was warm on my face as I stepped outside, a gentle breeze carrying the promise of relaxation and escape. My phone buzzed with messages from friends excited about our vacation plans, and I allowed myself a small laugh, letting the tension of anticipation slip away. This was supposed to be a time of freedom, a break from deadlines, and the relentless pursuit of ambition. Little did I know, while I was flying over oceans and exploring new horizons, a storm of its own kind was brewing at home. A decision that would shatter my world, test my resolve, and challenge everything I had worked for was quietly taking shape. I had left with excitement and hope, but I would return to shock, betrayal, and the harsh reality that even dreams built with love and sweat could be taken away in an instant. And just like that, the seeds of heartbreak were quietly planted, though I had no inkling of the storm waiting for me at home. The first few days of vacation were everything I had hoped for. Sunlight spilled over the horizon as I wandered along unfamiliar streets, each corner promising a small adventure. The air was lighter here, filled with scents and sounds so different from home. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without the constant weight of deadlines pressing on my shoulders. I spent my mornings exploring local markets, my afternoons lounging by the sea, and my evenings laughing with friends I had known for years, but rarely had the chance to see. Each day seemed brighter than the last, and yet, somewhere in the back of my mind, my dream project lingered like a quiet shadow. I checked my phone occasionally, not for work messages, there weren't any, but for updates from my family. Everything seemed normal. Dad's messages were brief and reassuring. "All's fine here. Don't worry." My sister, as usual, sent playful selfies and cheerful texts, blissfully unaware of any real tension. Despite the serenity, a subtle unease followed me, like a faint ripple across calm waters. I remembered the small hints before I left. Overdue bills my sister had mentioned casually, Dad's tired sighs that I brushed off as nothing, and they now crept into my mind uninvited. Still, I told myself to focus on the present. After all, I had earned this break. My project was in capable hands. Dad was responsible, wise, and careful. What could possibly go wrong? Evenings were my favorite. I would sit alone on a balcony, the horizon painted in hues of orange and pink, and let my thoughts wander. I imagined returning home, energized and inspired, ready to pour my renewed energy into the project. I pictured the first steps of launching it, the pride, the sense of accomplishment. Everything felt so close, so tangible, and yet I could not shake the feeling that life had a way of sneaking up and altering even the best-laid plans. Little did I know, while I basked in this calm and celebrated my freedom, decisions were being made at home that would unravel everything I had worked for. The carefree days, the laughter, the gentle peace, They were a fragile illusion. The storm that awaited me was growing quietly in the shadows, and my return would bring not the joy I imagined, but a heart-wrenching confrontation with reality. Returning home felt like sliding back into the familiar, but nothing about the house felt the same. The driveway was quiet, the garden unchanged, yet there was a heaviness in the air that made my chest tighten. I set down my suitcase and paused at the threshold, expecting the usual warmth of my family greeting me, but the silence was deafening. I stepped inside, calling out, "Dad? Sis?" No response. My heart began to thump, a creeping sense of unease settling like a stone in my stomach. The first clue was subtle. The absence of familiar hum of activity, the lack of notes or reminders around the house. Then I saw it. My workspace, once the vibrant epicenter of my dreams, was empty. Devices, sketches, prototypes, all gone. Every scrap of hard work that I had nurtured with love and sleepless nights was vanished. And then my father appeared. He didn't meet my eyes at first, and when he finally did, I saw the tension etched into his face. What happened? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then exhaled, as though the weight of his decision had been unbearable even to carry. I sold your project, he said quietly. The words didn't register at first. My mind spun in disbelief. Sold what? How? Why? Dad's eyes filled with a mixture of regret and resolve. Your sister, she had debts. $314,000. I had no choice. I had to help her. I thought maybe you'd understand. I staggered backward, my hand clutching the edge of the table for support. My voice shook as I tried to process what he had just confessed. You sold it? My dream project? Everything I worked for, gone? And all for her. He nodded slowly. I know it was important to you, but she needed me. I couldn't let her fall into that pit. I thought I was protecting the family. I sank into a chair, numb. Rage and despair collided in my chest like thunder. Months, years even, of planning, of sacrifices, of passion poured into this project, vanished in a single decision. My father's voice faded into background as memories of late nights, early mornings, and endless revisions flashed through my mind. Then my sister walked in, unaware of the storm she had caused. "Hey, did you have a good trip?" she asked cheerfully, holding a coffee cup as if nothing had happened. Her smile made my heart ache with disbelief. "Do you even realize what's been done?" I snapped, my voice trembling with anger. "Do you know your debts destroyed everything I built." She looked startled for a moment, then shrugged, a nervous laugh escaping her. I didn't think it would be such a big deal. He said he'd handle it. I felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me. My father had handled it. All right, but at the cost of my dreams, my trust, and my belief that hard work and loyalty mattered. I had returned from vacation with hope, and instead, I was faced with devastation, a life I had built on passion reduced to ashes. For the first time, I saw my father not as protector, but as a man who had made a choice that would haunt me for years. And I realized in that moment that life had changed irreversibly. My dream had been stolen, and nothing could return it. But how I responded next would define who I truly was. I sank into the chair, staring at the empty space where my project had once stood. The room felt hollow, almost mocking me with its silence. My mind replayed every moment, every sacrifice, every sleepless night I had poured into building something that was meant to define me. I remember the first sketches I had drawn in the margins of notebooks, the late nights hunched over my desk, the weekends I had given up with friends to perfect a single detail. Every small victory, every tiny breakthrough, it all felt meaningless now. Flashbacks struck me unrelentingly. I saw myself explaining the project to my father for the first time, his eyes lighting up with pride as he listened. I remembered showing my sister, hoping she'd be inspired, and how she had smiled politely but quickly returned to her phone, uninterested. I remember the countless moments when I had declined a request for help or money, focusing instead on the dream I believed would change everything. And now, in a cruel twist, my father had used that very dream to bail her out, as if my efforts didn't matter. The unfairness of it all pressed down on me. I had always believed in fairness, in merit, in the idea that hard work was rewarded. Yet here I was, learning a harsh lesson. Family loyalty could override everything else. I loved my sister and I loved my father, but that love didn't erase the sting of betrayal. It didn't fill the empty space where my project used to be, nor did it soften the sharp edge of disappointment cutting through my chest. I realized, painfully, that life often demanded choices that left no one truly satisfied. My father had acted out of love, but his definition of love clashed violently with mine. I had envisioned a future shaped by my own hands, not rewritten to fix the mistakes of others. And yet, despite the anger, despite the grief, a small spark of determination flickered within me. I couldn't undo what had been done, but perhaps I could reclaim something even more powerful. The drive to rebuild, the courage to forge a new path from ruins. As the memories faded, I sat upright, taking a deep breath. The pain was raw, the betrayal fresh, but I could no longer remain paralyzed by it. Reflection had shown me the depth of my loss, but it also revealed the strength I had always carried, waiting for the moment I would need it most. I stood in the living room, my hands trembling, as my father shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. The silence between us was thick, heavy, suffocating. Finally, I could no longer contain the storm inside me. "How could you do this?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Do you even realize what you've taken from me? Everything I worked for, everything I dreamed of, gone." Dad looked at me, his expression a mix of regret and stubborn resolve. "I know it's hard to understand," he said softly, "but she needed me. Your sister's debts, they weren't just numbers. They were life-altering. I had to protect her." I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and hollow. "Protect her? You sold my dream to protect her. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears went into that project? Years of my life. And for what? So she can continue without responsibility?" At that moment, my sister walked in, carrying a cup of coffee, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the situation. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone casual, almost flippant. My anger boiled over. "You don't even get it, do you?" I shouted. "This was my life, my project, and you just took it from me with Dad's help." Her face fell, guilt flickering in her eyes for a moment before she tried to defend herself. I didn't ask for it. I didn't know he'd." "Didn't ask for it?" I interrupted, pointing at both of them. "You didn't even think about what you were destroying. My hard work doesn't matter to either of you." Dad ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "It wasn't about disregarding your work. I did what I thought was right. She needed me, and I couldn't stand by while she fell into financial ruin." I took a step closer, my chest tight with emotion. "And what about me? What about my dreams, my plans, my life? Do they mean nothing to you?" The room fell silent again, tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. My father's eyes glistened with unspoken remorse. My sister's gaze dropped to the floor, ashamed but still defensive. For the first time, I realized that love and loyalty could clash in ways I had never imagined. Dad had acted out of love, yes, but it was love that had destroyed my world. I backed away, my fists clenched, and felt a surge of determination rise from the depths of my despair. "You may have taken my project, but you haven't taken my resolve," I said firmly. "I will rebuild. I will find a way forward. And next time, I will make sure my dreams are mine alone." As I turned and walked out of the room, the weight of betrayal and grief pressed heavily on my shoulders, but beneath it, a spark of strength had ignited. The confrontation had ended, but my fight was just beginning. After the confrontation, I retreated to my room, closing the door behind me with a soft click that felt louder than it should. The anger and betrayal still simmered inside me, but slowly, beneath the hurt, a quiet determination began to take shape. I had been given a cruel lesson. Life could be unfair, and those we trust most could make decisions that shatter our world. But that didn't mean my journey was over. I sat at the edge of my bed, pulling out my old notebooks, sketches, and planning sheets I had brought along for inspiration during the trip. Even though the original project was gone, the ideas, the passion, and the skills I had developed still lived within me. I realized something vital. A project is not just a physical creation. It is a reflection of the person who built it. And that person, me, was still here, still capable, still determined. For the first time since learning what happened, I allowed myself to imagine a new beginning. I would rebuild, not just to reclaim what was lost, but to surpass it. I would take the lessons from his betrayal, the awareness of family dynamics, the understanding of my own resilience, and use them as fuel. No longer would my dreams be vulnerable to the whims of others. I would create boundaries, safeguard my vision, and ensure that my future was in my hands alone. I started drafting a plan. Small steps at first, tangible goals that could slowly turn into progress. I would reach out to mentors, reconnect with collaborators, and explore new funding options. I made a silent vow that nothing, not debt, not family interference, not betrayal, would deter me from pursuing what I loved. As I worked through the night, a sense of clarity settled over me. Pain and loss were still there, but they no longer paralyzed me. They had transformed into purpose, a drive stronger than the despair I had felt just hours ago. I realized that life's setbacks were inevitable, but how I responded would define me more than the events themselves ever could. By morning, the first outlines of a new project were sketched across the pages before me. It wasn't the same as before. It was better, stronger, and undeniably mine. I smiled for the first time since returning home, knowing that I had faced a storm, and now I was ready to rise from it. Weeks passed, and the pain of betrayal gradually softened, though it never completely disappeared. I had thrown myself into rebuilding my project, each step a reminder of my resilience and determination. Slowly, the fragments of my vision began to take shape again, stronger and more refined than before. Every sketch, every plan, every late night at the desk became a testament to my commitment, not just to the project, but to myself. The family dynamics remained complicated, but boundaries had been set. My father understood quietly that some decisions carried consequences too heavy to ignore, and my sister began facing her responsibilities with newfound awareness. Love for them remained, but I had learned that protecting my dreams sometimes meant standing firm, even in the face of disappointment. The emptiness I had felt upon returning home transformed into motivation. I realized that loss, though painful, could also be a teacher. It had forced me to examine my priorities, sharpen my focus, and recognize the power I held over my own destiny. One evening, as I looked at the latest prototype on my desk, a sense of pride swelled inside me. It wasn't just a project anymore. It was a symbol of perseverance, resilience, and hope. I had survived heartbreak, confronted betrayal, and emerged stronger. Though the past could not be changed, the future was mine to shape. And for the first time in months, I felt a quiet, unshakable certainty. No matter what life threw at me next, I would face it head-on, armed with the knowledge that my dreams, my efforts, and my spirit were mine alone, and no one could take them away.